Hi, I'm Ryan Donnelly. I'm a gardener here in St. Francis Bay. I've been gardening for about 20 or so years, and I've had a number of friends ask me about how I set up this garden here by my house. And so what I thought I would do is make a video to cover a bit more about the garden so that it can help some other people as well. And there are obviously now some certain things that I've learned in St. Francis Bay that are quite important when it comes to having a garden. And one of them is all day sun. The other one is protection from the wind. We have radical winds here in St. Francis Bay from the east and particularly from the west. And so this is one of the reasons why I have a garden that has shade cloth and windbreaks on the other side. And one of the other reasons I have shade cloth is where I am here in St. Francis Bay. There's a lot of animals. We've got porcupine, we've got buck, we've got monkeys, we've got rodents, we've got snakes, we've got puff adders. And so this garden is basically a control mechanism to deal with a lot of these things that we have here in this environment here in St. Francis Bay. It may be different where you are. Now, getting back to the basics of setting up a garden, one of the main things I look at firstly is where is the sun? Where is it coming up? Where is it setting? And is there going to be sun in my garden all day long? That is one of the first things. And one of the second things is the location in terms of how close it is to the house. As you can see here, this garden is attached to the house. There's no distance between the house and the garden. My second garden was way out on that side of the farm, and I was actually living in another part of town, and that's where I learned the lesson of having a garden close to the house. Even if you have to walk a short distance to get to the garden, after a while it becomes something. And so I was really excited about having my third garden attached to the house and as close to the house as possible. Alright, what I'd like to do now is take you to the windbreak. Actually, I've got a windbreak here in my orchard I'll take you to first, and then I'll take you to the windbreak on the west side of this garden. Setting up those windbreaks are really important if you're going to have an orchard or a garden here, especially in St. Francis Bay. Where you are may be different, but we really get heavy winds here, and there's just no way to garden here without proper protection from the wind. And so I'll catch you in a minute. We'll be there by the windbreak. Alright, here we are in the orchard, and this is actually the middle row. This is the middle windbreak or windrow in my orchard, and as you can see, there's poles and old shade cloth, and on the east side are these really nice yellow woods that are coming up. So what I've learned in terms of setting up windbreaks in St. Francis Bay, you can even see the poles are leaning. Shows you how the west can get a bit hectic in our area. Alright, so what I've found is that this system works very well in that you can immediately get wind protection with the poles and the shade cloth, and then plant the young indigenous trees on the lee side, so they also get protection as they grow up nice and straight. And then when the wind brings the rain falls on the shade cloth, comes down and drips at the roots of the young trees. So the system works very well, and then in time, as you can see, now the shade cloth is old and the yellow woods are taking its place quite nicely. I'm quite happy with the yellow woods. They grow a bit slower than some of the other trees, however it also makes it easier to maintain them. Here we are on the west side of my garden, and as you can see, this is a taller windbreak. This is about 3 meter. I haven't been able to find the shade cloth that that I used to use. It's got the eyelets in the middle as well, which is better. But I think you have to order them in longer rolls now, and I just wanted a small piece, so I used this. And I've got longer poles just straight into the ground, dug a hole, stick them in. No, not too much to it. And then I've got wires running along the top and down the side to concrete and a stake. And so these poles are not held up by concretes and stakes and wires on the west or the east side. They're just holding them there by themselves. So it's just the force of them being in the ground that's holding them up, basically. But on the north and the south side, I've got strong points that hold them down. Alright, so here on the ground, as you can see, there's a stay wire coming down to a strong point. And then in the ground there's concrete, and I've got a stake, and I just used a thicker wire. And that comes up. I've got a whole bunch of tomato cages. Actually, these cages work well for a number of other different crops. But there you can see it attaches to the pole at the top there. And then also there's wires going from the corner all the way to that side. In terms of setting up the shake cloth, you want to put some rubber on the chafe points. So on the top of these inside poles here, you've got to put rubber on the top of the poles so it doesn't chafe the shake cloth. Anywhere where there's movement is not good. So yeah, there you can see now on the outside there, we're going to have a strong point coming up with wire to there and running across to the house. You can see each row has done that, and you've got to have these wire supports. There's another one, and then a wire support there along the top all the way. And then as you can see here now, shake cloth that come in rolls of 3 meters. And then here I've just joined them with these cable ties, which makes it very easy. Don't leave gaps, the monkeys will get in. And you can do the same on the borders too. You can see it's just cable ties there. I've used some latter to roll the ends and then the cable ties. That's what I've done there. And then I've just used cable ties to attach the mesh to. Now there is a wire also that runs obviously from there all the way. Each end has got wire, and you have to use a proper wire puller to get the tension right. So there's wire everywhere. Yeah, and so you want to set up your outside stakes first. I'm just going to walk over here and show you what I'm talking about. Those outside stakes, you want to set that up first. So you want to have that set up first, and then you put in these ones here coming across that way, and those ones coming across that way. And then once the structure is set up, now you can do these wires. And then you're going to thread your shake cloth through. So before you actually attach these wires to the other ends, before you attach them to the other ends, you've got to bring the shake cloth now onto those wires. And then once the piece of shake cloth that's been cut, that you put on these wires, once it's all in or on those wires, now you can attach those wires there and pull them tight with the wire puller. And then eventually you pull the shade cloth tight. Alright, so I've moved now to the east side of the garden, and what you can see there in terms of the structure is this pole coming up at a 45, holding that pole. So when it gets pulled by the wire on the top, it's got something there to support it. And then you want your poles every 3 meters going out like that. And the reason for that, I'll show you now, is when you put your shade cloth on, you can see your shade cloth is 3 meters wide. So you want your poles 3 meter distance. Now, that's on the outside. On the inside, I have a distance of 6 meters to these poles, and then these poles are 3 meters next to each other. I don't know if that's making any sense to you. But yeah, it's 6 meters from the middle of the garden to the house, and 6 meters from the middle of the garden to the outside. So yeah, I needed to put these poles in here. Rather I not have any poles or any of this nor any of that, but in order to make this garden work, I had to put in this structure. Now you may be noticing this netting up here, or larger chicken mesh. This lets the birds through, and this is a major factor in terms of dealing with bugs. If the birds can't get into the garden, how are you going to deal with all those bugs? So it's awesome to be able to let the birds in, and they get to work every morning dealing with the bugs. And it's really nice having the indigenous birds versus something else. I have a lot of wild animals here, so I kind of enjoy them. I don't have dogs anymore. In any case, this is where this used to keep the dogs out, this fencing here, and so that's just there. And then at the bottom here I have a finer chicken mesh which goes down into the ground, and there's also concrete down here too. And now this is going to stop some of the other animals and puff adders too. I'm hoping this stops the puff adders. I've had no puff adders in the garden, fortunately. And so yeah, this is designed to deal with a lot of the animals here. All right, I'm going to now take you to the inside of the garden and show you a few things there. One of the reasons for this structure is because of the monkeys. I'm sure when it comes to gardening, anybody that gardens or talks about the monkeys, you've heard horrible stories, and the gardener gets frustrated and loses all his crops and everything else, and you hear all these terrible stories of monkeys getting painted white, and so in any case, now this system keeps the monkeys out, so now you have a harmonious relationship between the wild animals and yourself, and you can grow your crops, and it's a lot better that way. You can enjoy seeing the monkeys on the outside, and they can be playing and comfortable, and you can be on the inside getting your crops in it. Now I have had one monkey for a while, and monkeys, they can smell when there's something nice going on. They have a very, very powerful sense of smell. And yes, he was walking along the top of the shade cloth, looking down inside, trying to see where he could get in, because he knew that there was some nice vegetables here in this garden, and he definitely wanted to get them to them, but he couldn't get in. Now, a troop since came back recently of 18 or more monkeys, and they're all over the house, all over the shade cloth, in the orchard, eating all the fruit, and 3 of them managed to get into the garden. And so what I did was I went around, I thought, oh, he's getting in there, and I'll close up that area. I hadn't closed it up properly, and there was a gap, and I closed that up. And then another one got in, and I found another gap where they got in, and I didn't close it up properly, so I sorted that out. And shame, then a baby got in that corner over there, where I've got shade cloth that attaches to some chicken mesh that attaches to the house, and there was like there was an opening where this baby got in, climbed along the wood on top there, and then fell on a blackberry bramble, which was not so good. So I opened up the back door and just kind of walked away, and it found its way out. And then I've closed all that up. And since then, not one monkey has gotten into this garden, and the troop has been here on my farm now for quite some time. They're quite comfortable. They're in the orchard, they're hanging around the house, they're on the roof, they're everywhere. There's monkey poop all over my roof and all over the house, the windowsills. So there's a lot of monkey activity here, and if they were going to get in now, they would, have gotten in and devastated this garden, but they haven't. So what I've found is that the system works very well as long as you close it up everywhere. You don't leave gaps for them to get in, then they don't come in. They don't break the shade cloth. They don't pull it open to try and get in. It seems to work very well. And this shade cloth that I have here is the thinnest shade cloth. It lets through the most amount of light. So the white that lets through the most amount of light. You do get the next ones up from there are a lot more coarse, and they are easier to work with. This one is quite fragile. I found that I've made a few gardens now, and I've used the stronger one that lets through slightly less light, and it was easier to put up. But what I found is this shade cloth is much better in terms of letting through more light, more air, and it takes a bit more to get used to working with it because it is a bit fragile. So you do have to obviously secure it all along the sides so that so there's no gaps for the monkeys to get in. Right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about size of the garden, and this is something that this is something that can really catch you if you're not watching out for it. We can get really excited about having a big garden and planting things all over the place, and then get to the point which is where I got to, is that now you've got a really big garden that you've got to maintain, and weeding can become quite a story. So what I did with this garden is I went half the size of the garden I had before, which was actually a market garden. I used to sell produce here locally in St. Francis Bay to the restaurants and that sort of thing, and it went very well. There's actually a very big demand. They kept telling me, "Come on, Ryan, come to the party." I just wanted more the whole time. So I'm not doing a market garden at the moment. This garden is for myself, and so in terms of your own use, if you're looking at having your own garden, think about the size. All right, this garden here might be quite big for a home garden, but what I'm trying to put across is that think about the weeding, think about how much you're able to manage, and also how much you're able to invest into the garden. For instance, when it comes to soil amendments, so if you go for a really big garden, now suddenly you need a really big budget to end up with good soil. You've got to put a lot into that. You've got to invest a lot of compost and organic soil amendments to be able to end up with a properly functioning garden. And so by scaling down to a size that you can manage and a size that you can actually invest in terms of getting good soil, I recommend just considering those factors when planning your garden. So all day long sun is what you want, as close to the house, north-south facing rows. These rows that I got here are narrower than traditional beds, and the reason for that is because I've designed them to fit the house. There's a certain size that I had to work with, and if I had to design the garden first and then the house and everything later, probably they would be a bit wider than this. So if you're looking at the width of my beds, I wouldn't take that as something to go by, because they are narrower than traditional beds. Now, when I put the soil here, or the way I set up my soil, was that I set up the perimeter. You can see I've got siding, and I've got clay bricks around to keep up the soil. Now, what I've found in terms of gardening, what I've found is when it's sandy, now where you are maybe clay, it may be a different story, but here in St. Francis Bay it's quite sandy, and the moment it gets hot, now suddenly the soil dries out and the crops are withering and you think you're not a good gardener. So those are all sorts of things that have happened to me, and what I've learned over time is that it really pays to have good soil, nice, deep, good soil in your garden. And that means investing in compost. And now compost alone is a whole nother subject, so I'm not going to get into that here. But typically a lot of compost, a lot of volcanic rock dust, and a lot of other organic soil amendments is needed to be able to establish good soil. And of course, and our soil is another big subject that is a lot bigger than what I'm going to be dealing with here in this video. But what the point I'm trying to get across is that in order to have a successful garden, especially in St. Francis Bay, most of the time it's likely going to require removing the soil that you have there, keeping the topsoil, taking the undersoil that's white or not much to it and sandy, taking that out and replacing it with a lot of compost and the topsoil that you had and a lot of other soil amendments. And so that's how I set this garden up, and I'm very happy I did it that way, because now I've got a nice black spongy soil in there in all of these beds, and it makes a huge difference. So it can get dry for a while, but the garden actually stays moist, and this paving actually also helps to keep moisture in. And I find the paving also helps to stop the weeds, suppress the weeds. And so there's not too much work in this garden. I've got a little seed tray set up here, so I do my starts there, and then I go into the garden. I'm gardening a little bit differently than I used to, so things are sort of scattered all over the place. I don't have rows of one thing, and the reason for that is obviously if a bug gets into one row and it's all one thing, it's going to have a party there and breed like crazy, and it'll be a disaster. So what by scattering plants around, mixing them randomly, I found that when the bug does get onto one plant over here, it kind of stays there and doesn't spread out, so the other plants are usually fine, or the other plants are the same. Now I do have a worm system which I'm going to show you. So here's the worm bin. So actually it's used for cattle, just a big bin. I think I use it for the water or the feed. And yeah, larger worm bin than usual. So when I pull out the worm castings, then what I usually do is mix it with different rock dusts. So I'll get rock dust from the local quarries. There's 2 different quarries that I get rock dust from, and very reasonable. They're not the fine rock dust though, that's kind of coarse. So, and not as many minerals as the volcanic rock dust, but I'm definitely using it. And I'm also using the volcanic rock dust, and sometimes some lime, and I'm also using soft rock phosphate. So once I'll mix that together here in one of these yellow composting tumblers, and I found that it really helps me to get my mix for seedlings and also for the microgreens. Okay, I'm here out in the orchard, and I'm standing next to a white sapote tree. I've got 8 of these in a row, and they've really been struggling over the years. I've been away overseas as well, and I've come back and forth, that sort of thing. But the reason I'm here is because I want to show you something really important, and that is mulch. I put this mulch on it was a lot higher. Now it's come down now. It's settled. I put this mulch on about a year ago, and I just found there is a major improvement in the growth of all the trees in the orchard since I did this mulching. So if you're putting in some fruit trees where you are, go crazy with the mulch. It really makes a difference. As you can see, this side of the garden is open. It's open to the east, and yes, the east wind comes in. I don't have such a big problem here with the east, where I am, particularly in St. Francis, but I know that it's different with the houses right by the coast, or potentially in Cape St. Francis. But where I am, it's not so bad. However, the point I'm trying to make here is that ventilation in the garden is a consideration I've found. And so this side of the garden is open, and I've got the chicken mesh at the top to let the birds through and let the air in. Now I've also got blackberries coming up on this side. I've got Concord grapes coming up on the north side. I've got plums, different kinds of plums coming up on the west side, and I've got blackberries now trailing along the house by those poles there. So it's going to become more and more, there's going to be more plants growing in a small space, and so as time goes on, ventilation becomes more of a thing. And so look for ways to try and vent your place. Maybe on the north side of your garden you're not going to need shade cloth, so maybe leave that open so the air can come in. But certainly on the west side of your garden, and for some the east side of the garden, those are the two places that the wind can be an issue. One of the nice things about having the east side of the garden open is that the sun in the morning comes straight in, and then you're getting more sun in your garden. So there's all these different considerations. However, certainly your airflow in your garden is important. Okay, I'm at the back of the house now. As you can see, I got a bunch of eco tanks, and yeah, water can be a problem for some people, and certainly it's one of the things that I have to consider as well. And what I've found is, I don't have a big house, I have a small house, a thatch roof going down onto a fiberglass roof, then a gutter, and I've got one tank right next to this side of the house, another tank next to that side of the house, and a bunch of tanks, storage tanks back here, so they all connect. And I have a pump that I use to water the garden, and so for most of the time I'm using this rainwater. And what I found is the rainwater is superior to the borehole water here in St. Francis Bay in terms of the garden. I've seen significant improvements in the growth of the vegetables and the plants with the rainwater. In the past I used to only have borehole water, and while it works, especially if we go into a drought or something like that, depending what hole you have, but I've found that the borehole water can be a little bit hard on the plants, and then the growth is not, it just kind of slows down. And then the moment you get the rainwater on, now it's there's life again. So if you can organize your place, you get some rainwater, it's going to be very useful for your garden. Hopefully I've covered the things you wanted to know, or the things you wanted to see, and that helps you out a bit. If you do have any more questions, just let me know.